welcome to Phoebe's graduation videos. Yay! I'm just now starting to get used to doing these through a video, so bear with me if I start to ramble at all. Probably a lot of it I may have already gone over in other videos, but I'm just gonna go over things again here and there. One thing I do want to point out is that I will send over a video separate to this going over the functions of the e-collar, and that video is going to feature a totally different dog from Phoebe. I meant to do that, don't worry about that if you get that. Because the mechanics of the e-collar are always the same, I made one video and then I just send that same one. But I will go over specific ways that I use it for Phoebe separately in this video. So when we get to e-collar stuff, pause this, go over to that, and then come back to this whenever you're ready. If you have any questions at all, of course, reach out to me. I think at this point, now that everything's kind of opening back up, if you need to do lessons with me, please reach out. I'm okay with doing that. My daughter goes back to school next week, so I'll be much more flexible in meeting with people. So that'll be something that I can start doing again. But for this week, since she's still with me, she's asleep right now in the car, so that's how I'm making this video. I'm just gonna send this video just for you to have. And I think that these have been helpful, other than me rambling a lot. They've been helpful because you have something to go back and look at, as opposed to our lessons that I normally do. Once that information is given, if you didn't soak it in, it leaves. You will be getting a packet of information. It's a bunch of literature that goes over the commands, how the e-collar functions, how to do commands, things like that, as well as your e-collar. When you get that packet, there's going to be stuff that goes over a prong collar. I didn't need one with her, I didn't use it, so just ignore that. It's something that's just included in everything. I do like to have that stay in that information packet, just because the mechanics of the prong collar, they work the same for leash pressure. So directions and how to apply it, when to apply it, work all the same. I just didn't find that she needed the actual prong collar. Okay, anyway, so before we get into commands and such, a big thing to be successful with training is making sure that you're following through with everything. That is the secret sauce. I don't have a magic wand. I cannot make her relationship with you be the same until you learn to follow through with what you're asking her to do. So be fair, set rules, and stick to them. Boundaries, rules, whatever. Don't set so many that you find yourself having to cave and fail here and there. So just have a good set of boundary rules at home. Always make sure she follows through. And again, be fair. We don't want to have such high expectations that she's constantly failing. We always want to help her be successful. And be proactive. Like, if you know that she is going to act a certain way in a certain situation, go into that situation giving her direction. That is how you build confidence in dogs, is by showing them what they need to be doing. It's not being forceful, it's not being mean, it's not being rude. It's just saying, when we're doing this, this is what you're going to be doing. And when you start setting those expectations for the dog, it alleviates some stresses that they may have if they didn't know what to be doing. So she, previous to all this training, she was a panic mover. So when she wasn't sure what she needed to be doing, she would kind of dart around and panic, try to escape, to create space for herself, because she didn't know where she needed to be. She didn't know what she needed to be doing. So by saying, we don't need to worry about this stuff, this is where I need you to be, I saw over time her kind of loosen up and stop, looking around and panicking and seeing where triggers were and things like that, because she knew, this is where I have to be. I'm not making any mistakes, because this is where my handler, me at the time, is telling me what I need to be doing.
Hi.
So making sure I'm going over that. Yep, making sure you're following through with things, setting good boundaries, being proactive, And being clear and direct. So you want to make sure that when you're giving her commands and when you're asking her what to do, you want to make sure she actually knows what this information is. So that is the point of obedience, is creating that common language. So instead of fussing at her or getting overly excited or getting frustrated, don't forget to breathe. Use a leash if you need to, because that is a very direct way to create clear communication, is leash pressure, showing her exactly where you need to be, or where she needs to be through the leash. And give her words and commands and things that she knows. So if she's being naughty and jumping around and you're fussing at her and getting upset, that's adding fuel to the situation, because it's just a bunch of energy. So stop what you're doing, breathe, take a deep breath. Phoebe, come, sit, calm down, or go to your place, which is what she's doing right now. Places I'll go over in a second, but that is a behavior command that I like to use to create calmness when she gets all frazzled. Yeah. Give her direction of make sure it's clear, make sure it's something that she knows what she's supposed to be doing. Also making sure that you are giving her a balanced life. On one side you have the enrichment, the biological fulfillment of exercise and energy outlets and fun things that she enjoys doing. And then you balance that with behaviors that you need to see from her. So we want her to be able to exert herself and get excited and play and be silly and be goofy and jump around and run and blah, blah, blah. But when you say that it's time to be calm, mean it, follow through with it. So if you always do that part, you're gonna have a dog that protests being calm and being obedient, because they're never given that outlet. And then if you never ask for calmness, then you have a dog that just doesn't know how to calm down. So again, make sure that you're giving her those outlets, and make sure it's something that she enjoys doing, not so much, well, this is the only way I know to give this dog an outlet. So like, I've met people like, I just throw the ball in the backyard and then they're so crazy. Maybe that's not like what Phoebe finds entertaining and a good outlet. So you know your dog, help her have fun, be successful, yada yada yada. But when it's time to be calm, enforce it. If she gets to a certain level in the household, and I like to have a cap, like this is the maximum that you're allowed to do. Every time she reaches that, we put her away. We put her either in another room, I don't know how your house is set up, so a place where she can go settle down and not have any interactions, so kind of like a momentary isolation. It's not punishment, it's not anything bad, it's just, whoa, you're too much, go lay down, go calm down for a second, let's what's the word, let's reboot, basically. Or a kennel, or if she hasn't had that enrichment, put her outside. I think I've said this 1,000 times, I don't even know if it's with Phoebe, but I know with all the dogs I work with, I always refer to my shepherd. She's a psycho, crazy dog. No amount of exercise gets her tired. She has to have that balance. But I know that when I don't give her enough, just capping her and putting her away doesn't help. It just makes her like do all the whiny stuff when I put her away. So if I haven't done my job as a dog owner and given her enrichment and given her things to help her out, I would just put her outside and let her go. She'll go take care of herself. She'll do laps, she'll chase bees, she does all that stuff. So if you haven't given Phoebe enough and you don't want to just put her away, let her go outside and have fun for a little bit. What do you listen to? So as far as commands go, when we give commands, we want to make sure that we're being clear and direct. Again, we want to make sure that she knows what we're asking. We want to make sure it's words that she understands. I like to only give the command one time, so we're not sit, Phoebe, sit, none of that stuff. We say it one time, and if she doesn't do it, we're going to help her be successful. So typically I'm going to kind of jump into pressure. We have leash pressure, which is just creating tension in our leash, and just calm, steady tension. We're not choking her out, we're not cranking on or anything like that. It's just a guidance into whatever behavior you're asking her. And again, in that packet, it's going to show you like specifics of that, but I'll show you here too. You have e-collar pressure, which I'll go over in a second also. Spatial pressure, which is just using your presence as a way to manipulate where she is. So let's say she's standing in front of me. If I want her to move backwards, I'm just going to start walking into her, adding pressure. And as soon as she moves away, I stop adding pressure. So I'll either stop moving forward or I'll back off. I'll reward her through release of pressure. And I do that by facing her, making sure that I'm in a confronting posture. That's not really the word I want to use, but something that means something to her. So like dogs, socially, if they're interacting, if they're being pleasant and social, they typically greet each other side by side to be non-confrontational. And then when they are either being dominant or confrontational or asking for space, they will face each other frontally. So they will move into each other facing forward. And that's where a lot of leash reactivity happens, because they're forced to greet front to front because of their leash restrictions. So anyway, that's spatial pressure, right? So one time for the command, and if she doesn't do it, or she comes out of behavior, we're going to apply some form of pressure to help her be successful. Going back into our marker system, we have good and okay as our reward markers, and then no or as our infraction markers. So good is something that I use to mark the moment in time that I like what she did. And I also use that as a duration marker. So if I tell her to sit, I want her to remain in behavior until I release her. So if I tell her to sit, I'm going to check in periodically, good, give her a treat or whatever. She doesn't have to have something. Excuse me. I'm going to periodically check in, good, and just to reward her for being in duration. It doesn't have to be every couple of seconds. It's usually something that I use if new information is present, or presented. So if she's in, let's say she's on her place command, no, down, come in, place, down. Say she's on her place. If somebody walked into the room and she remained in her place, I would say good, to show her that her not responding to that was something that I liked, to add in that duration. And then when you are ready for her to be done with whatever behavior she's doing, her release word is going to be okay. And that's, hi, girl. That is marking place, that moment in time that she can be done with that behavior. A good note to make is I want her responding to our words, not our body cues. So when I give her a marker, whatever, how do I word this? So if I'm giving her a treat, if I say the word good, I'm not presenting the food until after I've said the word good. So it'd be, example, good, then offer her a treat. If I'm releasing her, I'm going to be still, okay, and then move away to kind of signal to her that she can get up. So the reason that I don't want her responding to my bodily cues, physical cues, is because during duration work, I want to be able to move around and not gesture for her to respond to me moving. Does that make sense? So I want her to remain in behavior regardless of what I'm doing. So if she's in a stay and I take a step to the side, or I kind of bend down at her level, I don't want her responding to that. I should be able to do whatever I want to regardless. She needs to remain in behavior during that. So I want her, I don't want to move until after I say the word okay. I hope that makes sense. And then same thing with no and those are going to be, again, their infraction markers. So if she breaks behavior or she's not going to behavior, I'm going to say no and then apply physical pressure to help, because I want her to respond to those verbal cues initially without having to, in case you don't at one point have a physical way to help, if she knows what no and that they could potentially be followed by something physical, she knows what those mean. She knows what the consequences, good or bad, what those are of those words. That was a lot. Hi, sweet girl. I do like to make it a point to reward attention, engagement, specifically for her calm attention and engagement. So if we're out on a walk and she looks up at me, I'm gonna say good, to show her that I like that. I like that she's walking with me. If we're walking by something and she's really interested in it, and I will tell her no, give her a little leash pressure towards me. As soon as she re-engages with me, good, to kind of, I want to mark that moment of, I like that you're paying attention to me and not so worried about other things. I don't mind her looking at other stuff. It's more about the state of mind. So if we're out on a walk and she's just calmly looking at another dog or another person walking by, that's okay. I'm gonna let that happen. It's when she starts getting into that frantic, like I'm over focused, she gets her hair all ruffled, she starts being vocal about it, that's when I'm gonna tell her no. As soon as those signs start, I'm gonna say no and get her attention back on me and then reward her attention for being on me. I don't want her to lock into those triggers, because once that happens, it escalates and then it becomes a bigger problem. So as soon as she starts kind of getting into that too much focus, too much aroused attention towards those things, I'm just gonna correct it and tell her no. And you can use e-collar for that, you can use physical pressure, you can just use your verbal no or ah to help out with that. All right, so let's go over your commands. Okay, come here, mamas. Now you're relaxing, huh? Thank you. Come on. Let's see, you need to be in the shot. So I've just been using a slip lead with her. I think you guys just have a regular leash and collar, so that's totally fine. I know some people, they have like the halter, the harness, the whatever harnesses and stuff. Again, I didn't use a prong collar or anything like that. I really didn't find that I needed it with her, so if I don't need it, I don't want to use it. So when I use leash pressure, it's typically going to be in the direction that we want her head to go into. So for instance, if she's in the stand and she goes into a sit, their head kind of goes upwards like that a little bit, kind of levers upwards. So I would apply, if I wanted her to go into a sit, I would just apply leash pressure upwards. As soon as she goes into behavior, okay, good, I release that tension. So I guess I should segue back into pressure. Leash pressure, the way pressure works is you apply pressure when you need something. Hey. And then as soon as the behavior that you want happens, that is when you relieve pressure. Wherever you relieve pressure, that is going to be the behavior that's continued. So you want to make sure that you're not relieving pressure at an inopportune moment. I do like to segue into saying, make sure that you're conscious of the pressure that you're applying. So if you do too much, whether it's too tight or too high on the e-collar, and she starts panicking because it's too much, then you come into this crossroads of a problem area where either you wait it out and you just let her go work herself through it, and then you have the possibility of tainting the behavior where now she's really stressed out over this behavior, or your relationship is questioned right there from her because that was not a very pleasant experience. Or when she starts panicking and whatever, you relieve the pressure too soon. Some dogs can learn that throwing the slightest bit of a tantrum gets them out of the pressure. So maybe in the beginning it's because it was way too much pressure, and then they learn, oh, I just do a little bit of a tantrum and I get out of that. So give you something where you just touch the leash and she's like, to get out of it. And I say this because I work with dogs where if I pick the leash up, they gator roll and scream because they have learned through that system that throwing that tantrum gets them out of doing anything that they want to do, and then they become very, very problematic. Anyway, so leash pressure is just, it should typically just be the weight of the leash. I usually start out light and then I will add pressure as I need to. You can always add, it's a little trickier to take it away. So, hi. Be conscious of whatever, how much pressure you're applying. So, come here. So for the sit command, it's just an upward facing palm. She's already in the sit. Sit, good. Leash pressure upwards when you want her to go into a sit. And then I want her to remain in her sit until I release her from that. So if she got up out of a sit, I would just apply pressure upwards. I would say no, leash pressure upwards. When she fixed it, good, release the leash, or release the tension. So now if I start moving and she gets up, you can apply pressure or whatever, because she knows that she's in her sit. Good girl, good sit. Good girl. Hey, the good girl. And then, okay. Good girl. All right, move back a little bit so we can, I have the front facing camera so I can see where we are. Come here. So we gotta face this way, come on. You're being silly. For the down, it's just the opposite. So this is sit, then this is down. Nope, good. On my elbow, my foot. I like to make it a point that I'll be down here to put her into a down, and then I want to stand back up immediately afterwards. I found that if you linger down there for too long, because you're in their space, it kind of becomes this invitation to socialize. So dogs will jump up and greet you. They'll jump up out of their down to socialize with you. So you want to stand up afterwards. Good girl. Again, you should be able to do whatever you want to. La, 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 la. I worked on a stay with her, but essentially the stays are implied within the behavior because I want her to remain in behavior until I release her. Okay. Now I'm comfortable. So for the stay, I did a stay just because I know most people like that. So you would just either put her to sit, put her in down, and then the command for stay is just a flat palm to the face. So, Phoebe, stay. Good girl. And she should be able to remain in her stay regardless of what happens. Stay, so if you drop food, hopefully you can see that in the good girl. Good job. If I get down onto a different level, good girl. If I run around, good stay. If I drink something, I think the trickiest thing for her is she's very conscious of where I am. If I go behind her a little bit, that's been something that we've worked on, is her remaining in her stay regardless of where I am in relation to her. You don't care about coffee, do you? Good job. Okay. And then, did you ankle on this? So the place command, actually let me back up. For her stay, if she breaks her stay, I like to take her back to the original spot as close as I can to that. I just want to make sure that she understands that this is where I wanted you to be, this is where you're going to stay. Maybe here, that's not a big deal, but I like to enforce that so that if we're ever in a situation where it really does matter that she's actually where I asked her to be, that she knows that that's the protocol for that. Stay means right here. So if like you're going across the street or you have to go get something, I don't know, you need her to be right there, she knows stay means right here and I can't break it to gradually scoot closer to wherever I want to be. If she is in a sit stay and she lays down, I'm okay with that. To me, that's her relaxing, committing to being in that area longer. I'm okay with that. If she is in a down stay and she pops up into a sit, I will put her back into a down. To me, that's her going out of her way to get out of being in the stay, and it's the next step in her getting up and walking up. So I like to use the stay for going in and out of thresholds, so walking through doorways, top or bottom of stairs. Again, something that may not be that big of a deal when you're practicing at home, but it's good to set the tone. So if you're in a situation where it really does matter we've practiced it, she knows what the information is, she knows exactly what she's supposed to be doing when she's hearing these words. And that's everything that I go over. That's the big thing, is practicing them at home where it's a controlled environment. It may not seem like a big deal at home, but if she doesn't listen to you at home, she's not going to listen to you when there's a bunch of new information. So the more you practice at home, short sessions, it doesn't have to be very long, 3 to 5 minute sessions practicing random behaviors is perfect. That's highly recommended. When you practice at home, you guys become fluent with it. And when you need to take those behaviors elsewhere, it's something that she already knows how to do. You don't have to worry about fidgeting with certain behaviors because it's ingrained. You guys are fluent with it and know exactly what to do. Ready? All right. Come on, Phoebe, please. I know, we were just doing this one, huh? Initially, I was making her go into a down on her place. She's gotten significantly calmer with me to where I don't follow through with her going all the way into a down. If you're finding that she's being extra saucy at home, put her into a down onto her place. The idea with the place is where the body goes, the mind follows. So when you're putting her into a calmer body position, it's going to help her relax a little more. So that's kind of my thinking with the down. But otherwise, sitting her to a place, she just goes into a sit. If she stays in her place, that's fine. It's different from a stay because I don't care if she maneuvers around on it as long as she stays in her place. So my rule of thumb is at least 2 paws, or if it looks like she thinks that she's on there. So if she's on a flat surface and she kind of rolls and half her body's on and half her body's off, if she thinks that she's on her place, then I'll let that slide. It doesn't have to be one of these cot things. I don't have any of these at my house. It can be a blanket, a towel, a dog bed, a mat, a napkin, whatever, as long as something where she can distinguish what her boundaries are. So I wouldn't say that this little spot on the floor is her place because she doesn't know where her boundaries are. The place is something that I use to help build impulse control. The idea is we send her to her place, and regardless of what's happening around her, she's remaining on her place. So it's just something that, in this context, it helps her learn not to be reactive to things happening around her. So it helps translate to other aspects of her life where if you tell her to lay down and relax, regardless of what's going on, if there's a kid running by, a dog walking up, whatever, she has to remain in that spot. So it's something that we build value in. She gets reinforced on here a lot, so she knows remaining on this place. If I go sit down, if I get back up, if I walk out of the room, if I drop food on the floor, if the doorbell rings, all of those things, she is rewarded for remaining right there on her place. And if she gets up, we send her right back to there. Right, girlfriend? Yeah. It's something that I use to create calmness. I always hear the saying, a tired dog is a happy dog. Exercise is very important, but I think that there should, again, be that healthy balance between exercise and creating calm behaviors. So exercise alone, it builds endurance, if that's all that you're using to have a calmer dog.